Hi, I'm Muhcreedy or I'm Muhcreedy. I mean, if you've looked at my Wikipedia, you'd know, but well, who knows that? I can be sometimes a bit boring to listen to, but I'm paid to do that, so that's fine. Now, I am a play-by-play hybrid caster when it comes to the game of Rainbow Six Siege. I've done a couple of other games, but nothing's really sticked, so it's just been Siege from start to finish for me. I've been doing it for about 4 years, and I fell in love with it, and I never really want to stop. I mean, I've taken a bit of a break because I had to do some real world stuff, but now I'm back, and I really can't wait to get into both most importantly the leagues and most importantly the questions that we've got coming up for yourself. So I hope you enjoy. Yeah, I mean that's such a loaded question, really. I mean, going into esports, it started out just kind of as a novel thing. My mate turned to me and said, "Hey, I've been playing in one of these like local game cafes, and okay, you might want to get involved in this." I was like, "Well, you do Rocket League. I don't really fancy Rocket League. That's not something to do with myself." And then it kind of built on that. I was kind of watching him play. I was like, "Oh, okay, you know what? I might try and get into that." And then just kind of going into esports and saying, "Well, yeah, I'll give this a go." Eventually, that kind of led into casting, and that was where I kind of took that first step into esports and casting at the same time. And it's been a crazy one. So going from the start, just doing a couple of uni leagues, a couple of like T18 leagues in America that imploded halfway through, to going all the way to doing like Rainbow Rumble for UK nationals, stuff like that, and doing Challenge League quals, all that exciting stuff I've been able to do, and everything in between. Really, it's just been an absolute it's been an absolute wild journey. I mean, I've worked with such huge names and such amazing people. Like I know I've worked with Fraser, Captain Fluke, and one of them. I think I've done a cast with Demo and a couple of other people. I've casted big names as well. It's been a long journey. It's been quite a few years in the making, and it's one that I'm really happy to be in. And every little bit about it, big or small, is just so amazing to me and to be a part of. Like I can't ask for a better time with it, really. The kind of scary one. I mean, it was my first time casting ever, being on the camera. Sure, I'd done streams before. Sure, I'd like spoke, but never really had much traction. It was just my first time presenting and kind of developing, like taking people on a journey and being what I had to say was kind of the definitive word on something. So it was a very scary experience. Luckily, I had a really good co-caster. I mean, he's quite experienced in that one. He said, right, I'll handle more the play-by-play side of things. So I'll do a lot of the kind of think on your feet, the energy control, all that. Just focus on what you're saying and make sure it's right. And that was the case. I mean, I focused on getting that done. I fell in love with it. It was a pay gig. It led on to more experiences. So I'm really happy that I had that opportunity and that I really didn't waste it as well. Because I could have definitely took at that and kind of said, well, this isn't for me. Like this isn't the right way to go. I've done a couple of casts. I've kind of sounded quite dead on it. I haven't really done much to it. And there's a lot of VOD review that I've done with my co-caster, but it was just taking the right mindset. I mean, using that as saying, right, okay, that's a good first step, but we've got to keep going. We've got to keep climbing higher on this one. And that's exactly what we've done. I mean, we sat down, we did VOD review, we worked on how I could improve. I sat down, I casted for nearly 3 or 4 weeks straight at one point because of the pandemic and everything. I didn't have anything better to do. So using that as an opportunity just to build. And those first couple of steps was so, so important. The mindset I kind of had around it as well. I think definitely essential with that. Cast of esports is something that I feel like is so memorable that I can craft the journey for the viewer. I mean, it's so exciting watching what you're seeing on game, and I think that bleeds through on any caster that's passionate about the game. I mean, the excitement of a play-by-play, just the color getting into so much happiness, just detailing everything that breaks down. I feel like it's just that pure enjoyment that you see, and it's the fact that you are able to kind of present that to an audience. I mean, I can turn around, watch an amazing clip, and yeah, the clip is amazing just by itself, but if you have a caster able to kind of work around it, able to just really bring it to life, then it just ramps it up so, so much more importantly. I mean, think of some of those amazing casting calls that we've had in the future, like This Is Rocket League. I believe it's like they've often had the distinction of being the best team in the world, never having that until now. Stuff like that is like these simple games that you could just look at as a 1v1 gunfight. And yeah, it's exciting to watch. But then the cast can really build the story around it, and that's the magical thing for me is I'm able to do that. I'm able to kind of guide the viewers and guide the actual players when they look back at it and help them along in that journey, help them with that story. I mean, even for players, there's VOD reviews. They're gonna hear the voice, they're gonna hear the opinions. And when I look at it and I break down a round, they're gonna take that into account. So I'm also shaping their journeys as well, and that's what I love about it. Preparing for a casting session, maybe not the most methodical regarding it. I kind of go in, I'll do a little bit of warm up vocal exercises, just kind of prep my voice a little bit and say, well, start, going. I think typically a good audio check that we do is we count from 1 to 10, but progressively getting louder and then kind of using that as a scale of where our volume is going to be in a cast. So it's a good opportunity to warm it up so you can just go straight into it, start really ramping up the energy. And then the producer's not caught off guard as well, so that you really enjoy it. But that's a good way to do a vocal warm up, I found. And preparation as well. I'll take a look towards the overall league. I'll take a look towards stats, but a lot of it is kind of I go off the memory. I go off what I know about the teams and how I feel they'll play. Like I know that one team is a very aggressive team, so I might think, well, they're going to slow things down a little bit around here, or getting into that mentality of how I'm going to break things down and how teams are going to approach stuff is where I think about it. I also talk with the co-caster. I mean, if there's no communication, then there's nothing really going to happen that's good. You're not really going to go in there feeling prepared either. Like you know the game and you know the person you're talking to. So I'll always talk with the co-caster. If I've worked with them before, then I might not. I'll just kind of be like rough pointers, like you'll throw us in, you'll kind of lead us on this bit. But other than that, if it's a new person, then I'm talking to them. I'll say, right, here's what I'm kind of comfortable with. What do you fancy doing? Like, oh, I've got this is my style. What's yours? How would you want to work around that? And how do you feel that would be the best way to go about it? For example, if that person leans more towards color casting, which is just kind of bring like filling in the detail about what's happened and kind of dealing with those stats, dealing with those analytics, then how can I kind of work the best way with them? So that's my general approach to a cast. But sometimes, yeah, if it's somebody I know, it's teams I know, I'll just kind of jump in there because I kind of know what I'm going to talk about, how I'm going to meld with the next person. A memorable moment. I mean, I think it comes down to. I know it sounds cheesy, but I've casted Pengu, I've casted Fabian, I've casted Can, and like those are really exciting games to do. I mean, the names kind of speak for themselves, especially if you kind of know Siege when you're looking towards Penta GT. But everyone, pretty much everyone, does memorable names like them. I've been able to work with them and cast them. I've spoke to Fabian. I've worked with him in terms of production, and just it's been insane to kind of go on that journey and be a part of it in the kind of whole wider siege scene. I think that's the memorable thing for me is I've done these things, I've spoke to these people, I've casted over them, put words to the story that they create in game, and I feel like that's something that I've really enjoyed. For example, I know Pengu and I believe it was Kanto, I think. They were playing EUCL quals and they played really, really well. I got to cast them, and then I did the UK Rainbow Rumble. I got to cast and speak to Fabian as well. And it's all really exciting because, like I said, these are people that are big names in the scene, and it's been an honor to kind of work alongside them. Not to kind of sound like I'm gushing. I mean, it's not necessarily a moment of, oh my God, I'm fangirling. It is a case of like, I'm just taking a step back and say, whoa, I've kind of reached these higher heights. I've been able to, I've worked in leagues that other people have been in that have been really, really well and gone on to bigger things as well. I've kind of been in so many little things that have just escalated into bigger effects. So it's insane that. So yeah, I know it's not one specific memorable moment. It kind of comes down to that, but the more wider picture is what I'm really excited about, and that's what I really find memorable. So I mean, with challenges, I found there's been a couple of them. I mean, no journey gets perfectly. So I think one time, one of those occasions might have been like kind of stagnation. I mean, I kind of going through the same rut every cast, just constantly do the same thing over and over, and I didn't feel like I was really progressing much, and it didn't really feel like it was benefiting me that much. I was just doing the same things. I wasn't getting any. I wasn't pushing myself any further, and I think I might have felt that, if I just keep doing what I'm doing, I'll get there. But kind of being able to kind of take a step back from that, work with some other people that I know in that one is just take a look and say, well, let's see what I can improve. I mean, I'm not perfect. Let's do some VOD review. I'm going to have a look at this and say, well, here's how I can improve. Here's how I can step forward. Another kind of challenge is the hours. I mean, I remember I was a uni student when I was started casting. And for most of my casting career, I've been a uni student and I've not been for a couple of years now, and it's been night and day. I mean, I used to do so much North American stuff, which I know this league is part of. I did a lot of EU and NA, and it didn't really bother me which one I wanted to do. It was just which ones are offering work and which ones are paying. So that was a big driving force behind it. But as soon as I went over to work and doing full-time hours, it really started to take its toll. I mean, I'm limited in the NA work I can do now. And again, it's still looking for that paid work, which isn't as much of an option anymore because I've noticed it's kind of died a bit. As well as the actual work in general, I've noticed that over the past couple of years, it's kind of faded away on the amount of leagues and opportunities for a lot of new casters. So kind of coming into it with and coming back into it a bit with the experience I've got is quite handy. But I keep thinking of newer people and kind of the struggles they'd have. But at the end of the day, the kind of working with that is just putting myself out there again, and it's just making the effort to reach out to people and say, "Hi, I'm looking to get back into casting. Here's what I want to do. I'm out of practice, and I want to get better, and I want to work on it, and that's what I want to do." And for example, that's what I did with this league. I mean, I reached out and I said, "Hey, I'm interested in doing this. I know my availability is not amazing, but I will do what I can, and I'm really looking forward to getting involved." And here we go. I've already got a cast under my belt, and hopefully many more in the future with AEL as it does come into its next kind of reloaded series season one, I believe. That's hope I'm getting that right. If not, it's gonna have to get edited out in post. But yeah, it's mainly just coming down to that stagnation, remembering that it's always an improvement. There's always stuff to kind of work on. The hours is just kind of balancing. I ended up finding a better job that works more better for hours for me, so I can kind of work on that's kind of sorted itself out. And just the kind of opportunities, and it's a bit more difficult, but just making sure that you're still trying to do your best to put yourself out there. Because even if you're not finding stuff, then you can hold your head up high and say that you did your best. You have tried. You've done your effort, and it just may not be coming back at the moment, and you need to keep that going. I think it's a main one. I know a lot of people have kind of said some bigger names that I mean make a lot of sense. There's no way you can't keep out those people from the conversation. But for me, it's Jerry the Music Man. I mean, I don't think he's that well known in America, but in EU, he's been a massive face in the scene, especially with a lot of talent, a lot of people. He's been the head of a league. He's done a lot of casting, and most importantly, he's worked with people. He's been so friendly, he's so supportive for a lot of people that I know that have gone on to do so many things bigger and better in the scene. And he's just such a pleasant person. There's nothing anyone ever has a bad word to say about him. His fashion sense, maybe, it's tasteful. It's not for me, but I get it. It suits him. But I really love that person. He's always happy. He's always there with, a bit of encouragement, a bit of help if you want it. And he's never got a bad word to say about anyone and will always do the best for you. That's the kind of energy that I want to have as a caster in the community. I want to be someone that people can look up to as positive, helpful, supportive, and most importantly, just happy to be around. So yeah, my game started with Siege with casting. Esports just kind of started with Siege. I started casting and playing esports at the same time, and it was all Siege. I did a little bit of casting where I've kind of dipped my toes in other games, but it's mainly focused on Siege, kind of entirely from start to finish. Like I say, I've done a bit of Counter Strike, I've done a bit of Fortnite, Valorant, Call of Duty as well, but main and a bit of Rocket League, but it's mainly CS and Siege, but 100% Siege all the way from start to finish. I think the weirdest part I've had is with that Fortnite cast. That was a case of I was just kind of hired on the spot, and they said, right, we're gonna put you in. This is when it was really, really new game still, like it just been fully released, I think. And they didn't have any spectating that wasn't an official event. So they just said, right, we're going to put you in a game. This person's going to die, and then they're just going to spectate, and you're just going to cast off the spectate screen. And I think I did about 3 or 4 games about it, and it was actually so much fun. I don't understand how. I really enjoyed sitting there and just chatting about it, and it was just myself. But yeah, it's mainly been Counter Strike, which I've really enjoyed, but it's been Siege start to finish, and that's where a lot of the passion for casting for me is, and kind of will always stay. Like it's a simple fact of life. I know it's something that people are going to have. They want to read it. They want to see what people are saying about them. But if you're just starting out as a caster, not everything everyone has to say is going to be nice, and that is something you are going to have to deal with, especially the further in your career you go, as more people will see it. But if you're starting out and you're not entirely confident, maybe I wasn't in my first cast. No, I just kind of knew that if I had Twitch chat open, it would get in my head. It would just really shut me down, and it would turn that really positive experience into something negative. So I wouldn't have Twitch chat open. I just focus on what you're doing, what you're saying, and make sure it's the best as possible. And just in between maps, just chat with the co-caster and say, right, that was good. how can we improve in the next map? I mean, what can we do to just step up? Twitch chat is going to be amazing if everything's going great and it's beautiful and you're firing on all cylinders and you've really got experience and it shows. But they're also very unforgiving in terms of if you miss something or if you say something wrong, they will tear you apart. And as a newcaster, that's something you kind of want to avoid. You really want to build up that confidence. So keep Twitch chat off and just kind of look at that VOD review afterwards and say, all right, well, what was I saying here? Twitch chat, they might not always know the best thing in the world. They might not know why you're saying what you're saying. So it's just a case of that VOD review. Only you'll be able to look back at it and say, oh, I could have said that, or I shouldn't have said that there, maybe. I think it's one of those where you just develop that thick skin naturally. It's just the more casts you do, the more times you spend in front of a camera, the more confident you get. Especially with, I think, one of the main expectations is producers will talk in your ear. You will be expected to continue that conversation, continue that cast, and also be listening and paying attention and clocking exactly what they're saying. And it sounds rather simple, but it's such a difficult task to learn if it's not something you could do straight away. So learning to be able to do that, just it's getting comfortable, doing it constantly. Practice makes perfect, but most importantly, the way to deal with that pressure and expectation, I think, is just forgetting everything, just focusing on the here and now. Because your face is on camera, you got to appreciate that's going to happen. You can't avoid that. That's a part of the job. So by kind of just putting it out your mind and just saying, well, I'll just focus on the conversation I'm having with the co-cast. It feels a lot more natural. You're not feeling as stiff, and then that pressure and expectations is naturally kind of coming off your head, and you can kind of focus a lot more clearly on what you want to talk about, how you want to frame a game, how you want to discuss things in terms of like being productive for a team with feedback. You don't want to turn around and say this team has sucked. It's always this team hasn't performed, but there's a lot to take away from this. You can really focus on stuff like that when you're not thinking, how do I look on camera? Oh my God, I need to worry about this. This is coming up soon. Just kind of, if need be, just take a second and before you go live, just say, right, so I'm doing this, 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 this. Write it down if need be, and just kind of have that rough game plan in your head. For me, that's kind of what really just makes myself a lot calmer. Right now, I'm confident just before going live. I could just go live like that. But I mean, a lot of people aren't in that situation, and I definitely wasn't for the first year or so that I was casting. So it's just practice, and the more time in front of a camera, you'll get more confident naturally, and it just happens. So practice makes perfect. That's all I can really say on that one. Ooh, right. Okay. Favorite event. I'm gonna say the Badass University All-Star League. That was so much fun, especially being a uni student at the time to cast it, because it was a league of all the best players in the university scene in the UK for a time, and they were put into teams, and it was an all-stars league. It was really good players, really good teams that put a lot of effort. I mean, the person that made that league, Peak Bradley, he was so passionate about it. He really worked to breathe life into that, and it was really happy. I was really happy watching that kind of build up and up into what it became. We don't talk about what happened in a couple of seasons afterwards, but it was really good to see the first couple of seasons. It just went from strength to strength. It was so much fun to work. It was a paid gig, so everyone involved was really happy with it. And it was people that I knew playing. It was my friends that I played with and I spoke with on a regular basis. It was people in the Twitch chat that we all knew. It was a really beautiful community. It was so much fun. It's a shame that it's gone now, but I'm never gonna kind of regret it, and I will always look back on it and say, "I'm so thankful that I took part in that, and I was one of those building blocks." Right. Okay. So playing games kind of comes into it quite a bit. I spend a lot of time playing games with myself and my partner. Outside of that, really just enjoy going to food festivals. I love tanks. I mean, it's kind of like I say it's my special interest. Yeah, like it is. I'm a big fan of like anything military history tank related. So we went to the tank museum not long ago when they brought out the only world's existing Tiger. And they started driving it around. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed that day, and I met up with a couple of mates of mine as well to go down there. Other than that, yeah, like I just spend time with my partner. We just don't really get up too much. I used to work in nightclubs, so I don't really go out drinking anymore. I've spent way too much time at 7 a.m. in the morning cleaning up, so I don't want to go back. That's not happening. So I'll only go out every now and then. It's mainly just enjoy my time, and I do a little bit of Lego as well. You might have noticed on the background there. Yeah, that's not all of it. There's about double the value sat in that corner alone in the back of my screen, but I'm not going to move the camera to show it. I think the answer for this one, I mean, everyone says, and they're probably right. I'd love to cast SI. I don't know. I mean, I want to get a LAN under my belt. I want to cast a LAN. I've still not been able to do that in however many, like 4 years of casting now. I've still not casted a LAN in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I've done a couple of in-person things, but nothing that really counts in my mind of the definition. But I think the main thing I got to say is the meme invitational. I know they've done that a couple of years on the trot now, and I think just going in a studio, watching something where you watch all these massive names play these games, but rather than being for all the stakes like SI, it's just for a bit of fun. You sat there chilling. I feel like that's something I can really enjoy, like couch casting essentially. Just sat there, like, oh look what's going on, or how the hell do you miss that shot? Not like an actual production, if that makes sense. Just something fun that you could sit down and enjoy if that in that regard. I think just the kind of thought that goes behind it. The first answer is we don't have a start game button. I'll put it out there. We're not able to start the game. That's not us. But in reality, the main thing is just the kind of thought process of the practice that goes behind being able to develop a scene. I mean, when you're talking about a play-by-play, there's so many things to keep into account. It's not just reading the kill feed. That can be a big part of it, but it's seeing what kills you really need to hype up about. Say, if you're looking at a couple of gunfights going on, which is the highlight one? What do you point out? How do you build tension around something that's going to happen, like in a 1v3? Kind of what's going to happen next as well? All while keeping in mind that you need to hand off to your co-caster. You need to make sure that flows there as well, because they've got 100 million things to say, and they've probably got the similar thing to say that you want to, but just they've probably had time to think about it. So it's considering that as well as how are you going to frame it overall in the storyline? Like, is this a redemption? Is this a game just an absolute stomp? How is it going to be developed? How is it going to be directed like that? How do you lead them along that path? I mean, there's so many things to consider, like the pace, the timing, the energy. Because if I sit here and I just read and he goes over and he gets his kill, and this person kills this person, X kills Y, Z kills B, or whatever, it's so much more dull and dreary than say if I look at it and say, right, and this they're coming for that opening frag, they find that pick, they look for the second, and it's all in the first 30 seconds of the round. The defuse is taken down and suddenly that whole round has just fallen apart. There's such an obvious difference in the energy and the pacing of the style, and immediately that could have just been a quick match, but it already sounds so much more exciting than that first example I've given. And there's so much thought that's constantly happening on the fly for a whole game between two co-casters, typically, that I think is something that's kind of obvious, but it isn't until you think about it or it's pointed out.